That's my first time ever. Yeah. So you heard of any frozen septics yet? So like,
Or is that no? If you invite someone to address the commission, we send them the Zoom link so they can get in. But like, can't get in and
straw bale over or something, but
it's nothing.
Yeah, it's probably not. Probably one of them that you took your vacation with Bill.
Okay.
we use it. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Here, whatever she's gonna.
Right after the consent agenda.
Yeah. Right after this, that's all they got.
Okay.
I think we're good.
But the speaker is very sensitive for microphone.
So Tony,
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Awesome. We can hear you so far.
Awesome. Success so far. That's what I want. All right.
Can you hear me? This is Cindy.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
The Grand Forks County Commission for January 21st, 2025 started.
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second.
Aye. Order of agenda.
And I'd like to move up number 8 to after number 5 before number 6. So yeah, that'll be another commitment to be that.
Emergency management to be above the legislative priorities.
Yes. So I think a motion.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Approval of consent agenda, bills, employee status changes, overtime, and then payment chance.
I got a question. On when you get to the bills, the 7th page down, starting when the bills start, it's got North Dakota Association of Counties for $265,014.27. What's that for?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, if you're paid members of the commission, it is for our workers' comp.
Workers' comp. Okay, thank you.
Approval of consent agenda, that entertain a motion. First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to emergency management.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because all the information is in your packet. So basically what I'm asking for is chair signature on the Building Resilient Infrastructure Community Grant. We apply for this once every 5 years when our plan is required to be updated. We were approved for the grant back in December. So with your approval, we can get chair signature and we can get that back to the Department of Emergency Services. And then my second ask is we did a request for proposals for contractors to help us with this plan. It's over 400 pages, so contractor help is always welcome. And the new requirements that came out from FEMA in January of 24 are pretty extensive. So we do have the contractor that we would like to go with, the one from Bismarck. He's had a lot of success, and everybody we talked to is very impressed, including the Department of Emergency Services. So every county plan he has done has exceeded that local 25%. So there won't be any cash outlay for us. So I would hope that you would do a motion to allow me to sign the contract. I have the chair do it, but I put my name on it, so.
To allow the contract signed.
I would second that motion.
Second, any further discussion?
Madam Chair, she had two motions, and the first motion was not made.
First motion is chair signature on the brick grant contract from DES. Page.
Oh, that's the one I thought you were asking.
There's two contracts. There's
Oh, okay. well,
one
let
to
me-
get the big money and then there's one to spend the money.
Okay, yeah, well, let me rephrase it. I'll motion that Eric signs the grant application and that you sign the check.
Consulting.
or whatever.
Consulting.
And I would second that motion.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
All right, thank you very much.
Very good. Give that note to Fair Board.
Nick West.
Did I do it all right?
Oh, come on.
Oh.
He's not even paying attention. Alright.
I can take that, ma'am. Yeah, Manager, members of the commission. So when reviewing the 2025 legislative priorities, one of the priorities would be the funding of the human service zone. And so Mr. Jason Coffey was asked to come and address the commission on that issue. And then, of course, we have the on-site wastewater system, which public health is back to discuss too. So maybe Ms. Knudsen, do you want to introduce our guest?
Good afternoon. I have with me Kristen Hasbargen. She's on, not with me personally, but virtually. She is the Director of Zone Operations she's an employee with the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services. I also have via Zoom, Jason Coffey, who is the Human Services Zone's Accounting Manager. They had agreed to come and visit with us today about the funding and the budget aspect of the human service. So I also have with me a human service center zone role. It outlines the different roles of the human service center, the county commission, the zone director, and the Department of Human Services that I could hand out to you. So with that, I probably will turn this right over to Jason Coffey to present and provide information to us.
Thank you, Tammy. You guys can hear me okay? So in the interest of just saving you guys time, I think it'd be maybe best just to have you ask your questions, and then Kristen's here with me as well. She's the brains of the operation. I just push all the data around. So between the two of us, we'll just answer your questions if that's maybe okay with you guys, easier than me just giving a spiel that doesn't hit the points you're looking for.
Mr. Reardon, you feel like you have?
Yes, I have a question for you under the, it has to do with indirect costs.
Yes, sir.
And I talked to Ms. Nelson, and apparently there's a formula you people use to come to a number. In our case, it's $1.7 million in indirect costs.
Yeah.
And that we are paid $425,000. So in essence, we get reimbursed 25% of our costs. Is that something a legislator would have to change, or is that a policy out of your cabinet position, whatever it is?
Both.
Jason,
Yeah,
Jason, I can take a stab at that. Kristen Hasbargen, Director of Zone Operations. Thanks for the invite. Historically, there has always been a reimbursement of those indirect costs. We used to have space in lieu of rent or that sort of thing, those indirects have always been reported. But that 25%, to your question, I remember sitting in a legislative committee hearing when we were talking about the development of human service zones, and those elected officials felt that counties needed to have skin in the game, is what I remember them saying. So those portions of indirect costs, my opinion would be that it would need to take legislative change, like if there was to be more reimbursement. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, tell them we definitely have skin in the game, so,
You're right. Right.
okay, so I got my answer then.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I do.
can I just add a little bit to that?
Absolutely.
Prior to the Department of Human Services taking on a great portion of the staffing with benefits, with everything else that goes with that, each county used to have their own social services division. And it became apparent throughout the state that smaller counties really struggled because a very large portion of their budget was going into human services. And because of the need, the poverty levels and the need that residents within the counties needed help. And so when the legislature was taking on doing DHS as a state, I think that and please, Ms. Hasbargen, correct me if I'm wrong. I recall that once the state did start doing the takeover and the zones were determined, and there was a lot of paperwork and planning to do with what counties would consolidate and what counties would remain on their own as a zone, like Grand Forks County. And I believe that when the Department of Human Services division was being coordinated and funded under the state, many counties were very happy with that because it was bankrupting many of the counties. And when DHS did take over, they did recognize that it probably was at a greater cost than they anticipated. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew historically, and the skin in the game is absolutely what I remember too. But just recognize that it used to be a huge, huge part of the budget of the county. And when the state did take over DHS, that considered or that alleviated a very high cost that no longer was the responsibility of each county, but the responsibility of the state. So I just wanted to make that comment. And if I am incorrect, Ms. Hasbargen, please correct me.
If it's okay, I could just add to that, but I want to make sure the commission is all right with that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I would say just to add to that, remember the transformation of human service zones was presented to the legislative body as property tax relief, just the history of that. So once the department took over all of the funding of the direct expenses, that also eliminated, as your county auditor, I'm sure can share with you, the ability to levy mills for social services. So it was significant tax relief, property tax relief for the counties. Most of those county social services were using up to 20 mills, I think is what was able to be used that way by law. Just want to clarify, making sure that we understand human services, they are still county employees. So the state or HHS has not taken over for the employment of those. So Tammy's team are Grand Forks County employees and follow Grand Forks County benefits. I just wanted to make sure that was confirmed. You know, Jason and I think could do 2 to 3 hours on the history of zone transformation. So I don't want to go into more depth than what you need, but just wanted to add those couple comments.
You're good. Any other questions?
Well, I have just a question more for us. So if you, could you scroll down to the last page of the legislative priorities, please? So are we then actively, skip the languages, are we then actively, the Grand Forks County Human Service Zone, are we then, as part of it, I want to make sure, we're advocating for the state of North Dakota either fiscally support or remove unfunded mandates placed upon counties for human service zones. Is that part of our plan still at the county level? That'd be Mr. Ford, I guess. Are we lobbying for that still? Or do we have to vote on that? Because it's in red, so I'm not sure
Yes, sir.
if we're doing that or not.
It's a commission decision. If the commission still wants to make that a legislative priority, policy decision, so a vote to add it, and then we would share that with our legislators.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Happy to second it.
There we go, first and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? please say
I,
I,
Opposed?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you both.
Yes, thank you. If you need anything else from us, please reach out. We'll be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think, Madam Chair, members of the commission, next I'll turn it over to Ms. Wall. Oh, perfect. Yeah, they can readdress the thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Hagan, members of the commission. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Just say, last time I was heard they couldn't hear you, so.
Okay, I kind of moved here.
It's a fake mic. It's a fake mic. It looks so, you can move it as much as you want. It's not gonna help.
Thank you again for the opportunity to discuss this topic again. I apologize for last time if I was unclear. I did watch it briefly on YouTube and I was kind of going in and out, so I'll try and slow down.
Could you state your name for the record?
Jake Anderson, Grand Forks Public Health,
Thank you.
Environment Health. So you did recap a little bit, Tom, but last time I was here, I requested support for a statewide septic code as a legislative priority. This was to create consistency with regulation, protect natural resources, property owners, and property values. Commissioner Bierke expressed his preference to have Lane Megs from County here to provide input. So with that, over the weekend, there was 2 bills that were proposed. The last time we were here, there was nothing to really kind of discuss because there was nothing, there was no content. There was 2 bills proposed over the weekend, Senate Bill 2267 and House Bill 1541, which both aim to centralize control under state agencies, but they do take very different approaches. Senate Bill 2267 removes local control completely from the process. Firstly, it removes local expertise and responsiveness that we currently provide between city and county. Secondly, it openly removes the option to contract with any local entities at all. And then third, it eliminates the revenues and septic programs. So meaning that public health, the city side and the county side would be completely washed within the state program. House Bill 1541, which I believe is a better option for local governments. It leaves the option on the table to contract with the county and local health units. It provides a statewide technical guide. So like I stated before, they are going to create a statewide septic code that will be across the entire state of North Dakota. And then third, it exempts systems installed before August 1st of 2025. So like I said before, it's forward looking. And that date would be in August 1st, 2025. So it's clear that one of these bills is likely to pass. Local authority will be impacted, and the state funding code will go away. So the code that Lane is currently on, the county currently on, will go away when this is adopted, when we get it adopted. It will have to be passed, of course. In the reality, it's critical to support the option that better protects local control. Local control is House Bill 1541. They are going to create an advisory committee. So it would be made up of, right now, it would be DEQ, local health, and then installers. They would be all even. So with that, I'm open for any questions.
I'm not interested in supporting either of them. Right. I think local control is critical on these type of matters. And I'm not willing to just concede that one of them will pass. I think maybe they will if all the counties start throwing their weight behind it. But I'm a hard pass on this, just so you're aware.
Thank you. Commissioner. Yep, just so to be clear. I completely understand. I value your perspective. Absolutely. The only issue or response I have to that is if we don't support any of them, then we're not going to have any whatsoever. So then whatever it does come out of whichever one's passed, then that would be in essence unfunded.
Well, it doesn't sound like we've got input the way it sits right now, right? It's in the state's hands, and they're, in your opinion, they're going to pass one or the other. I think our input period is right now, and by not supporting these prerogatives, I think that's showing what our input is. I think if we support one or the other, we're showing the state that, yeah, we want to just give you control over our septic codes. And I totally differ from you. I don't know how in the world you think this saves money. It blows my mind that that's part of what's been brought up here, because more regulation never saves money. I mean, I can't even think of a regulation in mankind that's ever saved money. And we don't, it's not like we've got sewage flowing through our streets and counties right now. So it doesn't make sense to me to give it up. If they pass it, so be it, they're above us. But I don't want to sit and support one of them.
Absolutely. I understand.
I was wondering if Mr. Maggs could come up and address this issue. When you get up here, I'd like to get your input on what we've been doing. Have we had any issues? The fact that I believe you permit them now, so apparently some state guy's gonna move out here to permit our county. It's gonna be done in a timely manner, if I could be a little sarcastic with Mark there. So maybe you just want to address how you're doing things, the timely manner you respond, and if there's any issues, the fact that you make sure it's done, whatever. You just want to address those issues.
Right. I do septic permitting for 32 townships and extraterritorial areas of most of the cities within Grand Forks. Right now we follow the state plumbing code, which is in place right now. Haven't had any issues with it. It works. Like I said, we've been doing it for 18 years now. So if something does change, if they do pursue a statewide code, my only concern is that if it's different than what we have right now, I need to be able to explain that to the people why I'm having to put in a more expensive system or this type of thing. So I think that's the main thing that I would have a concern about. If there are new regulations, need to be able to explain why. I have not seen anything yet in terms of what the code would become. So I guess I can't really comment on that until I see something right in my hand.
And that's part of the problem. If we're going to pass it to find out what's in it, not a fan of that. That's not good government. Also, especially that first bill, we're getting timely response from our septic king, and things are taken care of. I am very concerned if the state takes it over, how we're going to get our citizens are going to be treated when it's a state agency doing the work, as opposed to the guy's been doing it forever. So I'm with Mr. Rusted. I would never vote for something that I can't read. And I also we just got told why we're going to spend over $1 million in indirect costs for a service we're providing them. Now they want to take away septics. That's just kind of playing both sides of the fence right now, what the state's doing. So I'm opposed to it also. I do not want to let the state have this. So if they do it, they do it. I really think if it does pass, we're going to have to get, they're going to hear from us, whether we're on the committee or not. They'll hear from us. But I hope we can set it up so he can continue doing it. I don't want the state driving people from who knows where, holding up building up the county because we can't get a septic system to take care of it.
I don't think it's a binary decision. I don't think we choose the lesser of two bills or greater of two bills, however you decide to look at it. I think we throw our support behind 0 bills. And that's our third option, in my opinion. Because I'm not getting an abundance of calls, or any for that matter, saying that Plain isn't doing his job certifying and granting permits for septic systems. And I just don't think it's an issue. And so if they pass one of those two things, and I suppose they do, and it's too bad, and I guess we'll have to go back to the drawing board, but I certainly don't want to support either one of them. Yeah, I wish, there was a bill that said, let's leave it alone.
I'd like to make a motion and make this a legislative priority. I move the Grand Forks County vigorously oppose any attempt for the state to take over the standards, regulations, and licensing of septic systems. And that's my motion.
Give you a second.
Okay. All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on the wastewater system? Hearing none.
Sorry, I just want to mention, lastly, just the 2 points that you guys both made, Commissioner, President Commissioner, Yerke. So the only thing I'm coming here with is an understanding from just meetings and build up to this. I thoroughly believe what the plan is, and this is my opinion. Take the water. DEQ will get the code, and they will try to contract services through both public health and the county, like it is right now. There's absolutely no capacity whatsoever for the DEQ to drive people from Bismarck all the way around the state. It's not possible. I don't understand how they could physically do that. So I believe, based on experience, like I said, based on the meetings that I've been in, that's what will happen. So, like I said, take for what it's worth. That's my take on it, my opinion, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I get it, absolutely. So I appreciate your perspective. Yeah,
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Denise.
I do have a question. So in either one of these bills, at this point, nothing is documented or printed that talks about contracting with public health or with the counties. They could contract with a third party, we don't know, potentially, and have some organization possibly out of state that would be the one that would be dealing with the licenses if the state itself does not have the capacity. So I guess that's my question. Is this laid out, or, I mean, you're trying to come up with something that sounds like it would make sense, but I just want to make sure that this is documented before we would even see it happen. And then all of a sudden, ABC licensing company out of Arizona is the one that's being contracted to provide the sewage licensing services in the state of North Dakota.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, Commissioner. In the first 2267, the Senate bill, they do explicitly state that no board, meaning board that they're going to create for this new septic code, can contract with the local entity. The second bill, House Bill 1541, again, my opinion, strategically, I believe they left that out for a reason, because there's no way, capacity-wise, there's no way that could happen. And to that notion that Commissioner Peach made, I would share that same sentiment. But like I said, this has been going on since 2019. So I believe that DEQ, like I said, has a strategy to this, and I think that they will. I don't see any other way. Long story short, I don't see any other way that it's feasible. I don't think they would take this on knowing that they're going to have to try and handle all this work. I don't want to stand up here though and speak in speculation. So I'm not trying to defend either one of these bills. I'm just giving you my honest, transparent right now.
Right, first and second discussion, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion approved unanimously.
Madam Chair, quick question, housekeeping question. In your packets, under my report was House Bill 1339. Would you like to address that now or wait till my report?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so House Bill 1339, bill relating to licensed ambulance services. This is a bill that would amend House Bill 1365. This was 1365 was introduced kind of in the 11th hour of the last legislative session. And essentially what that bill required was that rural ambulance services districts would have to form a board of directors, if you will, in order to continue receiving their mills from counties. I think the bill was good intention just to make sure that these districts are actually receiving their funding. However, we weren't able to get a lot of information on it, and even from our own partners here in Grand Forks County, they had concerns with this bill. So ultimately, the county last session opposed House Bill 1365, but it did pass. House Bill 1339 amends that, and essentially what it does is it would exempt hospitals like Northwood Deaconess Healthcare Center, that is a hospital that has board of directors and already had an ambulance service. And so Mr. Pete Antonson, who is the CFO for Deaconess Center, is on, and I invited him to just brief the commission on 1339 and then also request or see if the board's interested in adding it as a legislative priority. So Mr. Anderson, can I toss it over to you?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Tom did a really nice job of introducing 1339 and giving that historical perspective of 1365 passed in 2023. It's interesting that they did provide some exemptions back in 2023 within 1365, either a city-owned, a county-owned, or city, county, tribal, or owned by in a community over 6,500. Well, obviously Northwood's not 6,500, so we didn't fall into that exemption. We worked with and trying to work through the hospital association and to try to get something done. And those that are Speaker of the House, Robin Weiss, and Senator Judy Lee from Fargo are boy, they really dug in on this one, and they really almost don't seem to want to even hear what we have to say. In spite of our best efforts, they met with the hospital association. They offered a compromise, which really wasn't a compromise. What they had suggested was, well, we'll just guarantee the same number of mills, and that really doesn't relieve the administrative burden of having a separate board of directors. So in spite of that, we got a legislator to draft a bill, the 1339 that Tom referred to, and actually had that first hearing of it yesterday. Brock and I went out, several other hospital administrators were there as well. Two of us testified. I testified representing Northwood, and then a gentleman, the CEO of Langdon, testified as well. So I think if needed, the full copy of the testimony, I'm not going to read it. It's I think it was sent to Tom. Both mine and Brock's testimony was sent to Tom. So I won't read it necessarily. Yeah, so what we're still requested, and they didn't act yesterday. They basically just had the hearing. So we don't know what's going to happen. We feel like it maybe opened some eyes, but I have to say I'm not super optimistic yet. And anything that we can do to try to convince people of it. So the first step is getting the vote in House Human Services. So it's a very friendly website. If you know any of those legislators, I don't know that there's anybody from Grand Forks. There is District 20 representation. I know him very well, Mike Belts. He's from my district, and I know Mike very well. He was at the meeting, but I don't know if anybody from Grand Forks. I believe a Karen Anderson from Grafton might be on there, but she's also not Grand Forks County. So if you do feel like reaching out to any of the people on House Human Services and sending them an email, or if you as a commission have decided to make it a legislative priority, we would certainly appreciate it. I do feel one of the points I tried to make is not only is it an administrative burden, but we strongly suspect we're going to end up with less money. And why is that? So I might be speaking a little past I might be getting over my skis a little bit on this one, but as I understand it, the mills are collected for all of Grand Forks County, for all the properties, and it goes into a pot, and then the money is distributed based on the townships. And I tried to make the point to the committee yesterday that the pot is significantly bigger because of the city of Grand Forks. And Larimore and Northwood are probably benefiting from all of those properties into that pot. So yes, if we formed our own ambulance district, we'd get all 4 mills, but from a super much smaller pot. So if anybody had a right to complain and say, let's leave it as it is, it would be Altru. But they, in fact, have spoken to us and said anything that we can do to help this bill along, they're willing to work as well. So it feels like a solution in search of a problem. You know, we have a levy in place that's been in place, I don't know, 40 years. It's been here as long as I've been here, and it was increased sometime in maybe the mid to late 2000s. I remember we advocated on behalf and was able to increase it. So I hope I didn't take too much of your time, and I hope I didn't confuse the issue, but that's kind of our story. So happy to answer any questions from Northwood Deaconess's side. Again, I really think we're going to end up with less money. I think Larimore's going to end up with less money, and plus create an administrative burden. So we aren't advocating on behalf of Larimore. They are not hospital attached. We're just trying to take care of our own business. We don't know what's going on in there or other services. So the bill itself, the original bill 1365, certainly a good bill, certainly well-intentioned, but I think we are an unintended consequence. And now it feels like the legislators that first pushed and promoted this one they just feel like we did a really good thing, and now we're insulting them by going back. It's far from that. We just think it leaves us with less money and creates an administrative burden. I don't think that's the role of government. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So, any questions for me, please?
I want to run through this because I read through all this stuff, and in some ways it was as clear as mud. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying then. You're saying for Larimore and Northwood, you would have to create a taxing district, and the mills from only that area would go to you. Because right now we collect 6 mills for Grand Forks County, and whatever formerly used to divide the pot up to Altru, Northwood, and Larimore. So a couple questions. First of all, for Ms. Nelson, so if they have to do this, what does that do to us on our 6 mills and whatever we do? How does that affect us? And then I'll get to you in a minute.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly what happened to our 6 mills.
So you're not the only one that's clear as mud. All right.
I don't know. I mean, it was in 2002 that we increased from 3 mills to 6 mills. And what happens to this? Does it all go to Altru? I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's why the point is, if this goes the way it's going and we don't back the truck up, they'll have a district, Larimore have a district, they'll figure out their borders. I got the map. I'm assuming that's their districts. They'll tax that. Well, we don't know what's going to happen with the county tax then, because then it'll just be Altru, and we have to figure that out. Am I understanding it correctly? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, point number 2, I know you said Larimore is different, so does Larimore know, they understand what's going on? Are they grasping this?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think anybody really understands it. What
Clear as mud.
I would concur with Ms. Nelson. So, Madam Chair, Commissioner Bierke, these questions are what we tried to get clarified 2 years ago, which we didn't get a lot of questions to. To your question about Larimore, Ms. Gels, have you heard anything from the Larimore Fire Chief? I know I reached out a few times, just wanting to talk this through, wasn't able to get in touch with anyone. So I don't know yet where the Larimore Fire District is at on this, if they've made inroads, if they're talking to anyone. We just haven't been able to get in touch with anyone, find out where they're at. I do know that they have a board for their volunteer firefighting district, correct me if I'm wrong, and they've essentially been getting the funding for their district, using air quotes. And this will affect them because technically their board, their system does not comply with House Bill 1365.
Okay, so in summary then, for the gentleman from Northwood, they're gonna be affected negatively, Larimore will be affected negatively,
Yes, sir.
and we don't know what we're doing with the other
Yes,
stuff.
sir. That's correct.
Wow, that's some great bill right there. All right, okay. Thank you, sir, thank you. You really helped clear up about the districts. I'm glad you mentioned about that. So, yeah, it's not good. Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
Not for me, ma'am.
Okay, so you're looking, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
May I
I'm
speak?
assuming we would need a motion to
Okay,
support this.
so you want a motion to support bill number which one?
House Bill 1339.
Just on a side note now. So if we don't hear from Larimore, this isn't really gonna help Larimore?
This bill specifically would not help
Yeah, that's
Larimore.
it. But they haven't contacted us to ask for help.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, well, I can't help if we don't ask. All right, I will move that we support
House Bill 1339.
House Bill 1339.
Second.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cindy.
I will remove myself from voting because I currently am on the Northwood Deaconess House Center Board.
You have a first and second. Any other further
I
discussion?
make a motion, we allow Cindy Peaches recusal.
Thank you for that.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? to recuse, please?
Aye.
Aye. So we have a first and a second to support House Bill 1339. There's no other further discussion. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I refrain from voting.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your support and thank you for your time. Appreciate it a lot.
Okay. Mr. West, I think you're up. Number seven? Oh, just kidding. Just skipped right over it. Sorry, Nick. That's okay.
Yeah, phone privileges at the jail. So it has come to all of our attention that there was an individual at between the hours of 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, an individual not known to one of our counterparts, calling her repeatedly from the correctional institute. This individual is also apparently was in the jail for a very similar offense. And so that prompted me to want to take a pretty long, hard look at our policy and how we allow phone privileges to be exercised. Because my understanding is there was between 50 and 60 phone calls made from this individual. That means that Kimberly was not the only person being harassed. Others likely were too in the middle of the night. And phone privileges at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to me don't, that does not strike me as a right. That strikes me, and I'll listen to a robust discussion with my counterparts here, but that strikes me as more of a case-by-case basis type of thing where, for instance, like, and I mentioned to Mr. Ford earlier, if a spouse works night shift or something like that, or a son or daughter or something, and that's your only opportunity to connect with them, that would be a really reasonable case for being able to use the phone at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, but just to have carte blanche access to a telephone at that time of day, to me, is absolutely insane. Specifically when you're in the jail for committing a crime of that very nature, you almost can't even make it up. So I guess I would like to hear from Ms. Burkholder on, because this is to me a top-down failure. How does this happen, and how is it allowed to happen? And if it is, what do we need to change to make sure that it never does again? To not just Commissioner Hagan, but the other presumably 10 or so other people that individual is repeatedly calling at that time of night.
Commissioner, trusted members of the commission, I would have appreciated, just as Commissioner Burke has asked, that this information be provided in advance so I could prepare as well, but I'm somewhat prepared for this. I received absolutely no phone calls from anyone other than Commissioner Hagan questioning a phone call from this individual. In a matter of 30 minutes, it was investigated, returned the call to Commissioner Hagan, and problem resolved. We have numerous people, hundreds of people, calling at those hours because they've been picked up for DUI or whatever, where they have the ability to bond out. I won't say DUI. They have the ability to bond out. We bond out many people at those hours, of which you're aware of one specifically, right? That was at 2, 3 in the morning.
That should be one call to me.
Right.
Not out of your institution or from her cell phone prior to the rest, but yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure why
it's
that's pertinent to
it's
this.
pertinent because people,
Call
the more people that
don't,
don't, the people that don't call, we don't allow the calls, we have more people in the facility. If we can bond,
The call didn't come out of your facility. Check the freaking records. She called me from her own cell phone prior to the arrest. The call did not.
the issue is at 2, 3 in the morning, is it not? Is that what we're saying? I'm saying
Random calls once you're incarcerated to somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 50 calls or whatever it was, 60 calls. I don't even know how you're justifying this, but go ahead, continue on.
one phone call from Commissioner Hagan, taken care of in 30 minutes or less. She asked to have her number blocked. No one else is asked to have their number blocked.
Is it because they didn't make a statement about it, or, I mean,
No one else is asked to have their number blocked.
Can I ask a question? What is your policy? I'll get to that. Forget the one. What's the policy on inmates when they can use the phone to call whomever for whatever? What's that policy?
Commissioner Beersley, members of the commission, the vast majority of them don't have access to a phone at those hours. If they're in pods 1, 2, or 3, which is our general population pods, they're in a lockdown situation between 10:30 and 5:30 in the morning. So those people don't have access to the phones. People in the work release area, dormitory type area, the phones are there. They can be shut off, and I believe we do have those shut off, but the ones up in holding, that is for the inmates who are just brought in, and those phones don't get shut off. They have to have the ability to call. For those people, they're provided a free call as soon as we can. Many times they're not able to get a hold of who they're looking for. We have what's called holding 13. It's a cell area of which the calls in question were made out of, and this individual went to that area. We put him in there and allowed him to make his phone calls. There are 4 Department of Corrections standards that deal with access to phones. There's numerous case law that deals with access to phones. Case law isn't specific that it says that they have an inherent right to phones, but what is specific is it falls under the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the ability to utilize the phones to do so. There's also case law, and State's Attorney Wamstead can back me up on this or correct me, whichever. But there's a case law, Turner v. Safely, which very specific that if we're gonna restrict something, it has to have a penological interest to do so. So I'll use this one in question right now. Calls were made. I got a call with a concern. We have a penological interest at this point now to block it. But prior to that, we don't.
Okay, my question is, apparently was born in the wrong century. After they get their one phone call, I don't understand. This isn't a comment on you, it's just, I'm trying to, I'm a policy guy. They got their one phone call. I don't understand why they're allowed to, unless you're telling me they can't. It's jail. How can they be sitting there and be allowed to make call after call? You get your one phone call, like Ms. Thompson wants to jump in here, I don't know, but I don't understand it, because to me, you got your call. I don't know how somebody who's in a holding cell, I don't know how many calls it made, it sounds like a lot. I don't understand how that happens. I mean, if we've given them their call to relative, bondsman, whatever, why do they get to keep calling? Do we have to do that? Is that, I mean, can we set a different policy? If we have a policy that allows it, can we change that policy? That's what I want to know.
Sorry to interject, but it sounds like a legal question.
Yeah.
I think, Commissioner Frisky, members of the board, you have a very legitimate question. I think the legal answer is a little more tricky than on initial blush. So essentially, the state of the law is that inmates do have constitutional protections, and they don't lose all of those protections at the threshold of the correctional facility. So, for example, an inmate has a First Amendment right to maintain contact with their family, their legal counsel, and also to redress grievances with elected officials. With that said, that isn't unfettered. A penal institution or a correctional facility like ours can impose certain regulations to regulate, so to say, I guess, for lack of better terms, the use of that. So in other words, what I'm saying is we couldn't cut off entirely their ability to communicate because they have those rights, their right to an attorney, their right to communicate with their family and redress grievances with elected officials. With that said, when crafting policy to limit those rights, we need to be very careful in doing so. For example, we don't want the appearance that we are singling out a particular individual. We don't want the appearance that we are singling out a certain message that's being conveyed, whether it's a political position or a grievance of a particular individual or something like that. So we can craft policies to limit their ability to reach the outside world, but we need to be careful in how those policies are crafted. Mr. Burkholder is correct that the law provides that there needs to be a penological interest in or basis in making that regulation. So, for example, a correctional facility could have a policy that generally applied across the board that, other than contacting an attorney, that there's certain hours that phone calls could be made, sunrise to sunset, or something to that effect. It's not directed to a specific opinion or type of speech. It's not directed to a specific person, but it's a even-handed policy that can be applied across the board at all. I think there might be some other considerations, such as Mr. Burkholder said, some folks bombed out in the middle of the night. And so if we can get these people out of our doors quicker, you know, we see the interest there as well. So it's kind of a balancing test, but we also have to be mindful of those restrictions and those constitutional protections that an inmate has under the law. It's not an absolute absolute right. We can restrict it. We just need to be very careful in how we do so to ensure that we're complying with the law and it doesn't appear that we're censoring a certain type of communication or treating one particular person differently than we treat the rest, unless there's that penological interest.
Okay, well, I'll just go.
Madam Chair,
Okay, go first.
Go ahead, Cindy.
can I just interject something in this conversation?
Absolutely.
You know, obviously, a person was a public servant and was probably being called at odd hours or odd hours of the night. And okay, because we're familiar with that individual, that becomes an issue. But what if not this person that's in a holding cell? What if the person in the holding cell was your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, your partner, your child that is now an adult? What if it's a relative and all of a sudden they are trying to get money bailed out? Maybe they got put in jail for or for a DUI in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever the case may be. If it were your relative or your child or somebody you knew, then the story's different, because it's not, what are they doing calling in the middle of the night? It's, oh my God, you didn't let them call in the middle of the night. I mean, the bars were open until 2 a.m. You left the liquor establishment and maybe you're driving, who knows where you live, 30, 40 miles away in my case, and you shouldn't be driving, but you swerve or you do something and you get pulled over and you get a DUI, which you obviously deserve. But then you would expect that that partner, spouse, relative, person you know should have the right to get a hold of somebody. Is somebody going to answer their cell phone in the middle of the night? I've had an emergency situation in my family, and I tried calling my sister about my family member many, many times. And that person had been at work earlier in the evening, come home, shut their phone off, and weren't able to get a hold of them. And somebody finally had to go to their house to wake them up and tell them about this emergency situation. So I'm just saying, put the shoe on the other foot and not, okay, somebody got bothered in the middle of the night, but okay, you couldn't get bothered in the middle of the night because they can't call. And I just want that perspective to be thought about when we're talking about this situation.
Thank you, Cindy. I mean, I guess I don't think we're trying to take away their rights to be able to call anybody in the middle of the night. If somebody gets booked at 2:30 in the morning, they should be able to call somebody and get a hold of those people that they need to call. But when it's, the whole point of this was, this said person is in jail for making calls incessantly to other people. And now they go into our jail and then they're doing the same thing. So I don't necessarily want to take away their privileges, because that's not okay, but maybe we have these phones open for a set of period of time, and then after that set period of time, the people that can call are the people that are actually needing to make those connections for bond payments or whatever. I don't.
Commissioner Hagan, members of the commission, in those situations when incarcerated, they're not for hours and hours have the ability to make phone calls. They're given a period of time to make a phone call. As Commissioner Peach just mentioned, there might be times if they try to call one person, they don't get a hold of the call, and it might take a half a dozen, might take a dozen calls before they get a hold of people. We've had fraternity brothers call the whole fraternity trying to find out enough people get $50 from you, 50 to 50, so they can get bonded out. It happens. We've been running with the same policy, so to speak, allowing people to make the phone call, bond out since I can remember. I've been doing this 37.5 years, and we have never said, no, you make 2 calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's it. The number of times I've had a complaint from a phone call at this hour I can count on one finger. That was just this last time. It does not happen where we're getting consistent complaints. The other thing is true that hasn't been stated is if someone doesn't want to call from the correction center, it's as simple as I believe hitting that 8. Is it? You recall?
Yeah, and we did do that, but unfortunately, like this gentleman, he got another code from a different inmate and continued to make phone calls to the phone number. So that was we did, there's an option to block the phone and it happened, but then 5 hours later at like 2:54 or something in the morning, there was like 2 additional phone calls, but this gentleman had used a different inmate's phone code. So that's where it gets a little much. So.
And if you recall, that's what I informed you of that. I informed you that somehow, some way he was able to utilize an inmate's access code which didn't exist. HomeWait is looking into that, why or how that happened. They have engineers trying to resolve that. But that's an abnormal. It is not normal. They still haven't figured out how it happened. The code that was used is from an individual from 2019. It has not been an issue. It still is not an issue. And as I informed you, I've got your number blocked, and it can be blocked as long as you want to block. But that also means that every other constituent of Grand Forks County that's in the correctional center can't get a hold.
And I hope we know that this is not just about me. Like, I don't care that this person, individual, is calling me. I am an elected representative. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, it's okay. But when you make incessant phone calls to somebody and you're in jail for that reason, for harassing, deemed it appropriate at that time to block my number. So I didn't get phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Like
you know
you
what I
said,
mean?
we blocked
Again,
it
I don't want it
as
just to
soon
be
as-
like,
as soon as we knew.
right. I don't want it to be like, it was Kimberly, like, you gotta do it. She's so much more important than anybody else.
Her number
It's
shouldn't,
just-
her number shouldn't have to be blocked. There's gotta be a common sense policy decision we can make that checks every box, right? Where so that somebody that does get picked up has access, and if it takes several calls, so be it, to get somebody out or whatever, or if, like I mentioned earlier, if they have a spouse that's say they're in their drunk month or something, they got a spouse that works at night, to be able to talk to them, right? There's gotta be a easy solution here between allowing somebody to make 50, 60 calls in the middle of the night to random phone numbers, people whom he doesn't even know, and then denying them their basic civil liberties. Like, I can't believe there isn't a happy medium here that we can come to. Just from a policy standpoint, I would think, you say you weren't given any opportunity. Why put it on the agenda like last Thursday, last Wednesday or whatever, so it came on Friday. And you knew because she had called you that this was coming.
I had spoken to Commissioner Buffett, if I may, I had spoken to Commissioner Hagan, I had never spoken with you. My printout of the agenda on Friday, it was not on. So it was not on the posted agenda.
On mine, but whatever. It maybe it was a late date, I guess.
It was.
Maybe I pulled it up Saturday, whatever it's smack. But I just think that there's got to be some sort of a admittance of at least probably a error was maybe made from a policy standpoint, and we can correct this going forward so that this doesn't happen. And I don't know if it's not a problem. I've been hearing that officials and stuff do get calls, and maybe they just haven't brought them to you, and maybe they just do what I probably would have done, is just said, forget them, and worried about it in the morning, because I wouldn't have probably called you. I would have just laughed it out. But it's different when it's young mother of 4, and so every person's going to have a different ability to let water off the duck's back. And so if it hasn't been a problem, you've only literally had just the one complaint, I find that very difficult to believe. But if that's the case, that just means other people haven't brought it to your attention. Because if he made 50 phone calls that night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I guarantee you somebody else was annoyed.
Commissioner Russ, the members of the commission, I don't doubt that for a minute that someone may have been annoyed. May not recall, because I don't know how long they were here while you were here, or if they were even here for the longest time. We had tablets, we had texting materials and so forth, handheld devices. Every inmate was issued one. They had the ability to call, they had the ability to text 24/7. We've already reduced that substantially in that we don't have tablets, we don't have texting devices, mobile devices anymore in the facility. Many facilities in the state of North Dakota have them yet today. There are many people, their spouse, their significant other, the time that they can talk to them is 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. The sad thing about it today is we have no way of allowing the vast majority of our inmates to even communicate with those people because they're in a lockdown situation.
Well, sorry, no sympathy from me. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. My issue though, and I'm, once again, I'm a policy guy. Oh, sorry. See, there's a phone ringing. There it goes away. Did he really call 50 times? Did he not, but did he make 50 phone calls?
Commissioner Beerty, members of the commission, I don't know, I looked specifically for a
Okay.
number.
I guess
investigated a number that was in question.
so. I'm just asking you that. Not making a decision. Can you think about, obviously they get their calls. No one here is saying they can't call to get out of jail or whatever. Franco, once again, to her question, if it was a relative of mine, they call me, I'd say, enjoy your night stay. That'll be a motivator for you. But 1 to 50 is a big difference. And I told you I went through it. I don't know. Maybe it's just undoable with the staff of it. I would just request that you ponder, is there a way we can somehow keep track of, because 50 is a lot, as opposed to even half a dozen. He's going to be there a long time to do that.
Commissioner Beerty, members of the commission, let me go back and investigate all the phone calls that this gentleman made. And look
Both
at
codes, from both codes, right?
Well, the initial code was blocked probably within the first few hours for some other reason. I can't find that code under his name, so that was either blocked, home either corrected that, inactivated that. But I need to investigate to find out for sure. But I'll get an answer to that.
I think that's appropriate to investigate.
I'll look at what's there, and if we are going to change any policy whatsoever, I'm going to run by State's Attorney Wamstead to ensure that we're not going to be doing anything to interfere with their First Amendment rights. Yeah, and such, and don't open up any discrimination lawsuits or anything like that.
I have a question. So when they call, it's a collect call.
Commissioner Hagan?
So the person on the other end has to accept charges.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Initially, yes, they have the ability to put money on an account eventually. At that point, if they have 20 bucks in their pocket by phone time, then they can call and there's no charge. They're paying.
Cindy, did you have a question?
Commissioner Hagan?
Yep, go ahead.
Could I make a comment?
Go for it.
I'm a little concerned that this is a prime example of micromanagement. This is why we have program managers. This is why we have individuals that are highly educated in their field that operate facilities. And my concern is that because it was a known situation, that it becomes public at a public meeting. And I guess my concern is that this should have been handled administratively within that department. And I don't feel that this should have been brought to the commission as a whole. And I just want to make that comment.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to rebut that.
Go for it.
Did I not just ask him to review his policies and come back to us? Did I tell him what to do? Just want to make sure I was clear. I'm asking you to review a policy. We've had an issue. Let's see what is that. Last time I checked, our job is to set policy. And then you input, whoever it is, implement. Yeah. That's what I'm asking for. A review of a policy, come back to us, let us know if we can make it better. That's all I'm asking.
I guess I'm just saying that it seemed like instead of really looking at a policy, there was a lot more information dealing with one specific incident.
And I want to make sure that that's clear, that it's not just because it was me, Kimberly Hagan, the chair of the commission, that got called. It was, what's going on, and does this happen frequently? What's the policy? And once other commissioners found out, they had inquiring questions too, and we want to make sure we do everything above board, and that's how we run it.
I don't know, that's the point. I don't care who the guy called.
Right.
Who the clown called. If I had found out a constituent of this county, whoever it is, Jane Smith, I'd have the same reaction. Because this is an issue. So yeah, we're just looking at a policy. I like that. Check it out.
And actually, as you heard the administrator of the correction facility say, he's been administrator for 30 years. And this is the one time that this situation has come into, that has been brought up. So I'm just stating that it may have been consistently going on, but we can't imagine, or we can't assume that this is taking place broadly because of the lack of complaints. I'm just stating that, granted, a citizen of the county has an issue, but it's not that this is happening every night, every day, every hour, and it's 50 calls, whatever the situation may be. And I just made that statement that I understand at questioning a policy. I don't know if it should have been in a public place.
Yeah, we're just gonna disagree on that. I think this is the absolute appropriate format for discussing policy with undertones of stocking coming out of a facility that we operate and pay dearly for. And so we're just not gonna agree on that. Cindy, I mean, it's, to me, that there's gotta be some really, really simple solution, and just leaving it status quo is not to me an option. There needs to be adjustments to telephone privileges in the correctional facility beyond just getting a hold of somebody to get you out there speaking with an attorney. Because my colleague doesn't know this individual. She wasn't going to get him out, and she's not an attorney. So this was more of a random act of, what's the opposite of kindness? Rudeness. And so I think that at least tasking jail administration to look into the policy and tighten things up within the law is completely appropriate in this setting. And I don't know what other setting you do it in. This is a perfect setting. And this is why we're here.
And I think Commissioner Bearkey has addressed that, so.
Is 2 weeks enough time? You come back in 2 weeks? So you'll put it on the agenda?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And almost like you mentioned something about tablets and different things that the inmates used to get, right? So they just had like a tablet or phone that they had access to the internet, an iPad, so every individual got one.
Correct. Don't go back to that.
Oh my God. And they could just
We
use
won't.
it whenever they wanted to. I guess I'm asking your inquiring mind and wondering how that.
Commissioner Hagan, that has been a movement in corrections for the last 5 years, I suppose, is rather than putting phones and stuff on the walls and kiosks and such, multi-use tablets that would allow them to visit with their family and friends that way, but as well as make their phone calls from that same piece of equipment. And from a jail management side of things, other than that, was within these tablets, that they could make purchases of various things, whether it be educational or movies or whatever they wanted to do. They had that to keep them busy as well.
They did something, they
We
go
don't
to jail
wanna-
and you
we don't
don't
wanna
get to watch
revisit that
Netflix
right
or
now.
anything.
We're no interest in that.
None of that.
Any other comments?
No, I'm good.
Before moving on?
Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, I think now is your time.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board.
two items for consideration today. Both are for the same construction project. It's for the bridge on County 2. Over the river just north of US 2. Be the same project that last meeting. The board passed a resolution to accept the bid from Swing Construction for $1.9 million. So the first item here would be for construction engineering. The RFP was issued. That was submitted. They were submitted last week. We did unfortunately only received one proposal. It was from KLJ, it's the same company that designed the job. Conversation with Commissioner Bierke. We did go ahead and interview them. I know we took a little bit of liberty there because usually this would come to the board for, who would be on the selection committee, using, I guess, a little bit of experience. Usually not a lot of people jumping up for joy to get on and doing this kind of stuff.
I did. I was
Yeah.
so
You
excited.
were? Okay, I apologize.
She got
Chairman
road
Hagan.
ragers.
And there was only one proposal, so it's more of a, well, it is just a formality at this point. We still have to go through the motions, but so Commissioner Bierke, myself, and Scott Clayton in our office conducted a virtual interview Thursday afternoon, and the interview went well. And it would be my recommendation that we would recommend KLJ for being construction engineer on the project. And just so you're aware, I've never shared with the board before, but the other supporting documents, what I would submit, if this board agrees, this is what I would submit to the DOT as for associated paperwork. So the project is 80-20 funded, or 80% federal, 20% locally funded. And by going through this process, then they will also pay that percentage on the construction engineering as well too. So let's stand for any questions.
I'll move approval. Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. That's in favor of the KLJ construction.
The second item would be is just Friday, the contract came in for the same project from the DOT. They're looking for the county's concurrence on this. I have reviewed, it looks okay to me. Ms. Olmsted has reviewed and would concur it's okay from a legal standpoint. If okay with the board, I would ask for two parts, the contract and the contract bond. Contract, they're looking for the auditor and chair signature. On the bond, they're looking for chair and state's attorney signature. And I would ask approval on that as well too.
I'm with approval of the appropriate signatures on the documents.
Right.
Any second, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. That's all I have for the board. We are, you have talked about the legislature, they're in full swing. There's about 15 bills that the county engineers group is tracking. A couple of them are really good. They're looking at some funding specifically for bridges. So those are nice. We've submitted some testimony in support of those. There's one bill that we are moderately opposing, and that is they want to, I believe it's 1407. They want to increase the legal weight of trucks from 105.5 to 113. This would be at least second, if not third time they've tried to increase weight of trucks. And we're peddling that issue very lightly. Because, you're always trying to improve and increase efficiencies, and we've been at the 105.5 mark for a number of decades now, and they're trying to figure out ways to do that. Our problem isn't with heavier trucks particularly, but it's like, well, how do you handle that on a road and bridge? And particularly our bridges. We just spent, well, it cost the taxpayers $2 million to re-inspect and load rate Grand Forks County bridges over the last 4 years. We paid 19% of that, we rounded to 20, but we paid $400,000 to the state for all this stuff. And it's like, if they go and they change it again, we're gonna have to reload rate our bridges again. And then the ones on our bad list are gonna increase. And so it's like, if you want, so our testimony basically to the state is fine, but you better compensate us for it, and maybe your truck speeds on the road more, and it's just a tough one. So, we could talk for hours on legislature here, but just want to let the board is aware that we'll be doing some testimony on Thursday, and maybe testimony on some other bills too. But if you want to know more, reach out to me later. I got a tracking spreadsheet. Phone calls every Friday. Thank you.
Great, 10, county website calendar with all county meetings. Let's give you a key.
I just want to give some information on this. If you go to the website, you'll see something marked calendar. If you click on that, the calendar will come up. And like today's 1/21. If you go to that date and click where it says county commission meetings, then the agenda and the packet will come up, so you could review all the supporting documents, everything we see, they see. So thanks to the staff for taking care of that. And so once again, click on calendar, then go to the county commission meeting, click on that, and all the documents will come up.
Commissioner Yerke, do I have to continue to send you a separate link if that's available there?
Don't have to send me one. I took the other form.
Do I have to send you a notice if it's already on the website?
Just for our packet?
Yeah, I don't
need
know
one.
if it's
No,
necessary.
it's on the website.
Yeah.
The packet's
If it's
there.
on the website, that's fine.
Yeah, we just cut down on your time. Look at that.
Even you.
We are givers, not takers.
Okay. Here we go. Cindy, are you okay with that? No more emails from Debbie with the packet or Max?
Yes, that should be fine. The only thing would be just the link, and if the link is online, that's great.
Very good. All right. Policy on citizen speaking at county meetings.
Okay, I got that one too. Under the supporting documents, I didn't see, do we have a written policy of any kind? We do not. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I wrote up. And if we need to get it down on a piece of paper for the next time and vote on it then, that's fine. But I want to just throw this out so you have time to ponder it then. So no, okay. Okay, if you look at your agenda, under number 4 says approval of order of agenda. After we get to that point, I would like the new number 5 to be labeled citizen comments. And what it would be is that at this time, the chair will ask if there are any citizens who would like to make a comment on an issue that's not on the agenda. So let's just say, here's the agenda. And I come up and I want to talk about wind towers. Okay, which is in the county. So at that point, there'd be a 5-minute time limit. And when they're done talking, we're not going to address that. We don't have any information. They make their spiel, but we shouldn't be even discussing something we don't have the documentation to research and look at. So at that point, they finish talking. The chair will then tell them who they need to go talk to. So once again, say it's wind towers. You would refer them to Mr. Magson in planning and zoning. They have any issues, whatever. And then if there's something we need to get on the agenda, then they work through the normal process to get on the agenda. So we're not going to address it that night. We're just going to take input. All right. That's the first comment, kind of comment. The second point would be the chair would then ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address an agenda item. All right. So let's say Jeff Smith's sitting over there and he says, I would like to address number 11. And so then the chair would write that down. And then when number 11 comes up, whoever makes the presentation makes the presentation. And then before the commission discusses it, then the chair would go, Mr. Smith, come up and give us your input. Because we don't, maybe, like I said, could be the bridge going up and he's got something to say about the bridge that's going by his house, how it's going to get in and out of his house, that kind of stuff. So they have a chance to address it. Once again, 5-minute time limit. It is an agenda item, so we would discuss it with them, make sure we're all where we need to be, and then we can vote on the item. This way, it's controlled, it's limited. We're free speeching along with our jail inmates, So everybody's happy. So it gives them the ability to bring up issues that are not on the agenda or address an issue on the agenda. And then we would deal accordingly, and we would not also be chasing rabbits, because we're not gonna go, once again, they bring up something totally, we're not gonna chase that rabbit. Thank you for your input. Need to go talk to so-and-so, and we can make an agenda item in the future if it's an issue. So I think probably the best thing to do is I'll go with Mr. Ford, we'll write something up, and we'll put it on the agenda for next time, so you have a written document to look at, to vote on.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we'll have two specific places that they can talk. One,
Well, two different, one is just for people who want to say whatever,
they need to say.
and the other one is just to address a specific topic. And that's the ones we really want to make sure they get a chance to say, because like I said, hey, they're gonna tear the bridge up, I can't get on the road, how do I supposed to get in on my house? That's just an example, not that Mr. West would do that, but it's just a point, so they can address issues that are before us. And so I'll go with Mr. Ford on that then. You're okay with that? Okay, all right, thank you.
Great. Madam Chair, members of the commission. For financial report for you. And on page 117 is the budget actual for the general fund. And I also gave you a hard copy of everything that's scanned in here. I thought it would be easier for you to look at. And so this is a general fund budget to actual. You have a hard copy on your desk. But you also have the notes that I'm going to go through. So general fund for the county fair, we had 100,000 budget and we spent 993,550. We give them the same amount of money that we receive in our property taxes, so that's why it's less than 100,000. Insurance reserve, what's included in that? The liability insurance, the auto, the equipment, the boiler, commercial building and personal property within those buildings, the data breach, except flood insurance, workers' comp. And we just paid that in January 2025, we saw that. Into the 2025 budget, we have 710 budgeted. So in 2024, we had 650. Our actual cost was 733. Guess what? We're going to be short in 2025, just like we were in 2024. We're not catching up. We increased it by not enough. So when we do the 2026 budget, we have to take that into account. Advertising under, in parentheses means we're under. The good thing, expenditures under. Advertising was at 70.43 budgeted, the budgeted amount. Correctional center was under $585,829. Why were they under? $249,542 was for salaries and benefits. The commissary inventory was under 75,000, furniture and equipment 68,000, repairs 61,000, service agreements 36,000, vehicles 36,000. They had budgeted to buy a vehicle and they did not. Commissioners, you are under on your travel by 8,400, your dues by 14, health insurance by 14, for a total of 13,642 that you're under. Human resources, health insurance was under 5,500, travel 1,600, and professional services 1,000 for 11,127. County administrator, base retention was under 13,000, ground sky, admin was under 8,100, travel was under 3,300, for a total of 23,490. District court charges, they were over budget by $236, and that was furniture and equipment line item that was over. Sexually dangerous, this is a requirement of the county by law. We don't know what that's going to be each year. It's an estimate. We were under 14,734, but it changes year to year. You never know. Finance and tax, we were under $57,000. Most of that is from a long-term employee that I had that retired. State's attorney, Their salaries and benefits were under 125,000, witness fees 5,300, travel 70, almost 7 or 5,800, dues 5,000 for a total of 161,934 under. Victim witness fees, again, this is just an estimate. We don't know from year to year what it's going to be. We were slightly over at 1634 this year. County recorder, they only include in their budget that we levy for salaries and benefits. So their salaries and benefits were under 17,616. Superintendent of schools, they were under 1381. It was for travel, dues, and their contingency fund. Tax equalization, salaries and benefits were under 62,500, consulting 6,750. Computer was under 23,124, from furniture and equipment of 12,375. Equipment rental 6,900, and software programming 3,440. Employee benefits, what's included in that? Your comprehensive health for your the insurance company and live well fees that we were under. Unemployment insurance, we did not have any unemployment insurance that we had to pay out. Law enforcement physicals were under, and the HRA withdrawals were under, for a total of 9,881. Buildings and grounds, service agreements were under 17,500. Salaries and benefits under 10,200. Gas and oil 8,200. Janitorial supplies 6,000 for a total of 40,454. Now, it's not everything that they're under. It's the main big things, because it will maybe not total the amount there. And some things went up too. And there might not be listed. Elections under 111,000. PSAP 911 was right on. We budget for that, and that's what we paid them, exactly what we budget. County memberships. The North Dakota Association of Counties was paid in 2023, and 2025 was not paid in 2024, but paid in 2025. So we'll have 1 year where it doubles up, because there was, so that's why we're under 35,233, because we didn't pay in due in 2023. Not that we won't have any, that just didn't get paid in 2024. And then the National County Association of Counties, the Grand Forks Chamber of Commerce, there again, it was paid in 2023. Nothing was paid in 2024, but was paid in 2024. Contracted services, what's included in that? Everything that we budget for is the community service and restitution, the Grand Forks Humane Society, Safe Kids, Child Advocacy Center, the Detox Center, and the Young Professional. It's zero because we budget for the amount that we're going to pay them. Utilities, electricity, gas, fuel, recycling, we're all under, for a total of $163,000. The COB conference rooms, we budgeted $3,900. We spent $3,147, 80%, and we're under $753. Capital improvements, we had budgeted $1 million. We spent 1.2. We spent more than that, but we have not done all of the work, and you'll see that in the 2025 budget. The sheriff is over 243,015, but that's because they have grants that they do not budget for. So our revenues on the sheriff side are over to make up, more than make up their overage on expenditures. They were over 373,000 on revenues. And they also, not only the grants that were not budgeted, they also have, they paid $43,000 for building rental for their new building that was not budgeted for. So regionally youth assessment center under 117,000, salaries and benefits 65,000 of that. Service agreements 12,000, furniture and equipment, building upkeep, and shelter care were all under. Mental health hearings, patient care was under 11,750, and legal fees 10,000. county coroner, they were over 28,215, and I put that in front, and I shouldn't. The coroner services were over 17,583, and the specialty supplies over 14,059. Can't really control how many you have to do in a year. Emergency management was over $18,061. Health insurance was up 15,857. They hired a new employee at the end of the year, and that wasn't budgeted for the type of insurance that employee was going to take. So that was part of it. And they also have the OT software of 27,000, but they are reimbursed 13,500 by the city. Planning and zoning, they were under 47,842, and that was from building inspections, code enforcement, health insurance, travel, board for diem, and miscellaneous. Then miscellaneous, we budget to have our postage paid, our mail delivery paid, our HR and flex and then admin fees, but things we didn't budget for, like our space our utilization study, that was 39,500. We transferred the UAS insurance of 22,927. City of East Grand Forks Bridge project for 15,645, and we had to pay the water board bond payment of 6,075. We are going to be reimbursed by the water board for that. Car repair, there was a car that got damaged in a parking lot. That was $924. And parking ramp signs. Got new signs out there, $646. County Reserve, Grand Forks Narcotics Task Force, and the Victims Reparation Program, no expensive. State COVID fund. We received initially money from the state federal dollars that became county dollars. They're part of our general fund, and we use that for fees for the parking ramp, the engineering that we could not use ARPA funds for. We use that, so that's what the 316 are for.
Next question, are we finally done with COVID?
What was that?
Are we finally done with COVID? Are you gonna give money, more money?
We're done. I
Okay,
mean,
good.
we've sent all.
Then move on to the Asian one, the Asian, the bird flu, right? Okay, that's what I'm saying. Right.
Maintenance, we had $9,420 spent of the $84,600 that was budgeted. Asset forfeiture, no expenditures. The Grand Forks County Social Service Client Opportunity Fund is a fund that there was a gentleman that donated money, and we have that, and we use it very sparingly. And so we do have the funds that offset any expense that is earned there. And they only spent $2,073 in 2024. The County Reporter Tech Fund, every dollar or every document that gets reported has an additional fee associated with it, and it's collected in the County Reporter Tech Fund. We spent $89,209 of that, and everything other than salaries and benefits for the reporter's office. The Grand Forks County Risk Safety and Training, we spent money on concrete repair work for tripping hazards, an AED, cows and batteries, an IWAS washing station for $25,277. Nothing was budgeted because we didn't know we were spending it, but we had funds to spend. The hazard chemical preparation, that's through the emergency management, and the contract leasing. All the money that's spent there is offset by revenue. So the general fund ended up at 96.8 or 63% of budgeted expenditures, or $983,091.62 less than what we budgeted, which is a very good thing. So then we got the road fund and the highway fund, and together they are They're under 665,584.38. Capital construction, that's for our correctional center expansion and youth assessment center project and our drone project. We spent $23,701 last year. And weed control, they spent 83.69% of their budget. Additional levies, the historical society commission approved that in September 1983, and that's a $0.25 maximum mill without a vote. It could be greater if it was put to a vote. Senior citizens board approved $1 on June 14th, 1988. The emergency fund, we got a refund of some federal from FEMA that was put in 2024. So that's why that we have that those extra dollars there, the 302,431 that we received. The veterans is over or under 18,297. They have travel, the veterans, the DAV band travel, the furniture, equipment repairs. For, the commission approved the veterans levy on July 1972. We're currently levying a 0.86 mils with a 2 mil maximum by law. Economic development, commissioner approved in 1987. Current levy is 0.89 mils, maximum levy is 4. The NDSU extension approved prior to 1974, and I don't know exactly when, I couldn't find it in a minute. Current levy is 1.43 mils, 2 mils maximum without a vote, and up to 4 mils with a vote. The city county health commission approved in 1991, and their current levy is 1.7 mils, maximum levy is 5. Special assessments, there is no limit on this levy. We can levy whatever amount we need to for special assessments. Now, Bradford County is exempt from property taxes. We do not pay property tax, but we pay specials. So if we have specials, we use that. And we did not in 2024 use the special assessment levy because we had $52,000. So if there are any specials that come up, we can use that. Water Resource Board approved by commission. Their current levy is 2.28 mils and with a 4 mil maximum. The county library service is was approved in 1979. The current levy is 1.95 mils, 4 mil maximum, or increased by voters. So it could actually go higher if the voters approve it. Red River Joint Management Board approved in 1981. Current levy is 1.41, 2 mil maximum. The ambulance fund, 6 mils. 3 additional mills were put on in 2002. The Airport Authority was approved in 1987. Current levy is 2 mils, maximum is 4. And the Grand Forks Soil currently is levying 0.91 mils with a maximum of 2.5 with voter approval. So you can do up to 1 and then you can put it to a vote. So that shows you all the expenses for the general fund and every other special revenue fund. We are at 2.9 million under. And then the general fund revenues. You can see the interest income we made $2 million in interest. We budgeted 600,000, so we have a 1.4% or $1.4 million greater than budgeted. State aid 1.6 million. We received 2.8 or 1.2 additional dollars. And you can see all these items here that I've listed. There are 11 items listed, but there are 90 other items, revenue items. Some are not over, some are under. But the general fund revenues are short by 1.4 million, but that includes the 3.5 or almost 3.5 million dollars that we had included in our 2025 budget cash we were going to use. But the difference between the cash that we're going to use, 3.5, and the 1.4 is almost $2 million. So we gained 3.4, just the $2 million that are almost $2 million, plus that we were under on our expenses of $982,000. So our cash used for 2024 was $1 million instead of 3.5. So it's did pretty good. Everybody, departments did very well, and well as well. Are there any questions on the budget?
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Denise.
As an administrator I've worked in financial management for over 30 years. I want to also commend the county or the program managers of the various programs. Obviously, this is a type of budget you like to see that it's underspent, not overspent. And it's not that people are being conservative or being, trying to over budget, but they're budgeting so that they're watching the dollars. They're being very conservative to be able to have a budget that isn't overspent. And that's one thing that I think that we need to recognize our program managers for, the jobs that they do, and that they're very conservative in spending. And I think that needs to be publicly recognized, and also recognize that when there is feelings of wanting to cut the budgets by 15%, it needs to be taken into consideration that the departments do not overspend. Usually they underspend, and that is a good thing.
12B is the 2025 capital improvement, and we need to schedule a meeting to discuss, and it's just here for information. That's what everyone is requested for their 2025 capital improvement request. But we need to set up a meeting when you're going to decide how the money is going to be spent.
Okay, I have a question on this. Okay, well, first of all, was this budgeted last year? So haven't you already had the meeting and figured out what you're gonna do with this money?
No, we always do it after.
Okay, so this is just like request then.
Their request.
Okay, well, some of this money I've heard has already been spent.
Yeah, that's, I do have on.
Well, I got confused if we're already spending it, what are we discussing?
So the top portion you've already approved, the commission's already approved. But the second section there,
Okay,
the 990 or 965,000 has not been approved.
okay,
It's just been requested, so that's what you have to look at.
okay. Well, I got some cuts in there, so we're gonna do them tonight, or we're gonna do them some other time?
I was thinking of setting a meeting,
Yeah,
let
we'll
you
set
know
up
what you
another
want to
meeting.
do.
Okay, you can, however you wanna do it, but I got the scissors out, so I'm ready to go.
So, and the pages following show you all the requests. So if they've given me a request that beyond 2025, you can at least see what they're asking for in the future. So if you want to pick a day, or you want to do it before the next meeting, or what would
An
work?
hour before the next commission meeting. Can we do it in an hour?
There's not too many, like 8 or 9 things. I got my cuts and questions, so I'm ready to roll right now, but yeah, we can do it. I mean, I'd rather not come back some odd day. We come in early or stay late, whatever you want to do.
we just address it now? We're talking about it already.
Well, in all fairness.
Yeah,
all the
I,
departments are not here.
exactly. So I'm fine with that. I'm good. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with doing it. The next meeting, however early we have to be. Still, I'll be here.
Yeah, Tuesday, February 4th will be our next meeting at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, okay.
Would that be?
Great. That's great. Write it down.
Cindy, is that date and time okay with you?
Yes, that will be fine.
February 4th, 3 p.m.
Infrastructure and public safety.
Jesus, Martha.
So we're moving on to Mr. Ford.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. A few items for the board, one for action, some for board discussion, some for board awareness. The first one I have is an amendment to the existing lease with Northeast Human Service Center. They are requesting to add 742 square feet on the 4th floor, also known as room M452. This is actually something that they've been requesting for a while now, and Ms. Nelson had been previously using it, but she graciously offered to move her storage equipment to lease it out. So adding about 742 square feet to the lease, looking for board approval and chair signature of the lease amendment. Happy to answer any questions.
Move. Second.
We have a first and a second quickly. Any discussion?
How much money?
It's well, now you want me to do math.
I can say it's a little over 12,000, but
It goes from 32,059 to 32,801 square feet, which increases, or it brings the total revenue to $536,296 a year for revenue.
All right, all those in favor of the lease amendment motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner Bierke discussed a lot of the live streaming. Thanks to the IT staff for marshaling and getting it done pretty quickly. IT is going to be meeting with appropriate personnel for other meetings such as planning and zoning, emergency management board, things like that. It'll be on that respective department manager to upload their packets and their meetings to the calendar link. And IT is going to do some training with each respective department head on who's going to be responsible with that. And then Ms. Leon is working with other partners to get their meetings on the calendar. So the EDC, the BRIC, PSAP, Airport Authority, things like that. So we're working it a little bit at a time, but we'll get the whole thing populated soon.
I just want to point out also, go to the website, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a YouTube button there. And you can click on that, you can watch it live. Or I know as Mr. Rustin likes to do, he likes to go back and replay and watch himself. Okay, so that's available to you. You can watch live or the replay. Bottom of the screen on the right-hand side is YouTube. And thanks to all the staff who got all that done. I appreciate it.
Good job. The next one, I'm looking for board discussion, and Ms. Leon, or not Ms. Leon, I'll ask Ms. Wamstead to chime in on this, but regarding the potential lease with North Dakota Department of Corrections. So I've had a few discussions with Commissioner Jonathan Holt and Ms. Wamstead. I won't speak for her, has had some discussions with Mike Mahoney, who's attorney for DOCR. I know he toured the facility as well. Obviously, we all heard in the governor's address and his budget, he's requesting some funds to have a lease with the County of Grand Forks. And so we'll continue speaking with the governor's office and DOCR, obviously, but a couple from me, a couple of items for the county board direction. When we start having discussions more and more about what the lease will look like, is it the commission's intention to just lease the expanded pod? Or does the commission also want to look at the new youth assessment center? And the reason I bring that up is if the board is also intending for the new youth assessment center, or what is supposed to be the new youth assessment center, there's a few things that myself or Mr. Gashevsky are going to need some marching orders on. And in other words, would youth assessment center be staying where they're at now? Which that building is an albatross and a black hole of money itself. So if that is the intention of the board, you know, that's what Ms. Lomstead and I will continue with. But then there's some things for the commission to discuss and think about, such as, do we put out an RFP for a demo? Or are they staying there? If so, Mr. Gashevsky has notified the board, myself, anytime it needs a new roof, it needs a new HVAC system. Ms. Spain can speak to this better than I can, but we have some variances with the state of North Dakota that are basically letting us have some temporary variances until the new center or until the department moved into the new facility. If they're going to stay put, we're also going to have to try to get that work accomplished so that we're not running on variances anymore. So with that, I'm looking for some direction, but I know you have some things too, Ms. Longstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ford. Like he had stated at the last commission meeting, the board passed a motion for Mr. Ford and I to begin negotiations with the state. In addition to Mr. Ford's contact with the governor's office, I had initially reached out to Mike Mahoney, attorney for DOCR, the morning after the board's meeting, so January 8th. To kind of begin some of the discussions. On his request, he requested a tour of the facility, and so we arranged that and hosted Mr. Mahoney last Wednesday on January 15th, which I think was a very good and productive conversation for all of us. It's also my understanding that Mr. Rusted and Sheriff Schneider have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning with the governor's office, and I believe Mr. Ford and I will be joining as well. So hopefully we can continue those discussions and work out kind of moving forward with an agreement with the state. So that's kind of an overview of where we've been. Just like Mr. Ford, I have some kind of some initial considerations. I've talked with Mr. Mahoney quite a bit on a variety of areas, including how DOCR has historically structured these agreements, how we have, along with a number of items from logistical to otherwise. And so in these discussions, it's garnered up some thoughts and some questions for the board to consider as well, because ultimately it's all of your decision as to how to proceed. I think there are a number of ways that an agreement could be structured. So just to kind of go through some of these things that have come to my attention for all of you to consider and either discuss today or ponder and discuss at a future meeting. I don't think it's something where we need an immediate decision, but just kind of some things. First and foremost, I think it's important to note that as a taxpayer, I certainly appreciate the board's interest in generating revenue for the county. Obviously, that's very important. It's a good idea. It's fiscally responsible. But what I also think is equally noteworthy is, from my vantage point as the elected state's attorney, public safety. My primary role as state's attorney is to prosecute crimes and hold offenders accountable that commit crimes in our county. And in that role, a major concern of mine is that we do need additional beds for our county inmates. And in fact, I was recently at a meeting amongst a number of stakeholders to discuss the jail population. And at this meeting, our presiding judge committed to conducting weekly reviews of the jail population to review and reduce bond as appropriate to make way for the next group of offenders. I do not note this for you as a criticism of our judges. I I think they are facing difficult decisions, and they're doing their best to work together with the county to accommodate our present situation. But when we're looking at reducing bonds for those that are incarcerated, I become concerned about public safety. And so just to kind of step back for a moment in structuring this agreement, I think we need to be mindful of the composition of our jail population. So the county has an obligation to hold all of our pretrial detainees, every one of them that's incarcerated. We also have an obligation to hold offenders sentenced to less than a year incarceration. And so that is the bulk of our population in the correctional facility. Now, the DOCR on the flip side, they're the custodian of those sentenced to a year or greater incarceration after sentencing, none of the pretrial detainees. It's obvious, it's no secret that DOCR likewise is in need of beds. That's been in the news. It's been part of the discussions with the governor's speeches and whatnot. And I agree that if we can assist the state in fulfilling some of their needs for finding beds for their inmates, that's equally a win for the county, because it's in our interest that they have beds as well. But ultimately, in the interest of public safety, I think we also need to be mindful of those beds for our county inmate population. And so, well, it is very fiscally responsible to seek revenue for the county. I also think on the balance of that is that we need to be mindful that public safety isn't a money. We put deputies on the roads, and that costs the taxpayers money. We put prosecutors in the courtroom, and that costs the taxpayers money. And we have to put a roof over the inmates, and naturally that's going to cost the taxpayers money too, all in the interest of public safety. And if we only fund the two first steps, the deputies on the road and the prosecutors in the courtroom, all our work is for naught if we don't have beds available to incarcerate those that we arrest and prosecute. So I don't envy any of you. It certainly is a tough balance to make, but I think we do need to be mindful of those considerations to balance in structuring an agreement that's mutually beneficial for the county and the state. Because ultimately, if we don't have the space to house these people, then all of our work is for naught. Now, I think piggybacking on Mr. Ford's question, it's also important for all of you to consider the breadth of the scope of the lease agreement. Do you want it merely for the portion of the addition relevant to adult offenders? Or are we talking the entire addition? Because as we know, about half of that addition is for our juveniles. Our juvenile detention, our shelter care, and our attending care program. Now, the intent was that this was included in the addition to replace the dilapidated building that they are currently in. And like Mr. Ford said, Mr. Grishevsky and others can chime in as to all the details of what that needs to be brought up to be on par, if we wanted to pursue that. But I think the same public safety concerns applies to our juvenile population. And I think sometimes folks assume that because they're juveniles, they're lower level offenses, they're less of a safety risk and a less of a concern for our public. And that's simply not true. My office is the office that handles all the prosecution of juvenile offenders. And we have juveniles in our community committing equally heinous crimes as the adults. And because these cases are confidential, we don't often hear about them unless they fall under certain circumstances justifying transfer to being tried as an adult, which covers a very narrow scope of based on how that statute is written. So just to kind of give you a sampling, in 2024, our office prosecuted juveniles for murder, negligent homicide, reckless endangerment, assault on a police officer, aggravated assault, gross sexual imposition, terrorizing, burglary, possession of and delivery of serious drugs, including cocaine, preventing arrest. I could go on and on and on. Equally heinous offenses as the adult offenders in our community. And while these are very serious offenses, most of them don't qualify for transfer to adult court based on the state statute that's written. So we need to figure out how to deal with these kids in our juvenile facility. And it's imperative for public safety that we have adequate space to detain juveniles that commit these offenses. And in doing so, that we have an adequate facility that meets all the necessary rules and regulations. If we were to go without a juvenile facility, our law enforcement would be faced with the alternative of finding a facility with available space, which that in and itself can be difficult. And that facility may be halfway across the state, likely is halfway across the state. Or the alternative of releasing these kids to our streets. So I think if we're going to explore the option of including the portion of the addition for the juvenile facility, we likewise need to explore the cost of rehabbing that dilapidated building that they're currently in. Because this facility is necessary for our, it's necessary for public. Now, other considerations I think the board should consider is, like I had mentioned in the beginning, on Mr. Mahoney's request, he took a tour of the facility. That was the first time I had ever been in the addition as well, is when he came to town to see the facility. I found that very enlightening. I've sat through every board meeting related to this facility. I've reviewed contracts related to this facility, but to walk through it, I found it to be very enlightening. And I think Mr. Mahoney would share the same thoughts. I could sit here and describe some of the logistical complications of leasing the full edition, but I think it might be more beneficial if the board likewise took a tour. I believe Commissioner Bierke did recently, and I credit you for doing so. And I hope you found it as enlightening as I did. I also think setting aside the lease agreement with the state or whomever, I think it's important to note that the time is right now for the board to tour the facility. Because if we start moving juveniles or adult offenders into that facility, the board can't go through there as a whole. If the board goes through there, it's subject to North Dakota open meetings law. So the media is permitted to join, the public is permitted to join, whatever citizen. And while that may logistically be challenging now, it's far easier now than once there's individuals. So that's one of my recommendations, is that I would ask the board to consider whether or not you want to schedule a special meeting and go through there to see the facility. And I think that might inform your thoughts on how you wish to proceed with any type of lease agreement. I think we also need to explore and consider any present contractual or legal obligations that we have for the current facility and how a lease agreement might impact those contractual obligations depending on how we move forward with that. So I think that should be a component of the study as well. And then lastly, obviously, I think there should be some level of a cost analysis for the various alternatives. Like I said, there's a number of different ways that we could structure a lease agreement. I think, in any event, there's a workable way that we can make it happen. And I think making it happen would be a win for the state and win for the county. But I think in doing so, it would be beneficial to do a cost assessment of kind of the different alternatives and how those different ways would play out for both the county and the state. Now, lastly, as always, I'm happy to help and continue discussions with the state. But before we start putting pen to paper, I think there's a bit more due diligence that needs to be done, a bit more discussions that need to take place between the state, and maybe tomorrow in our meeting, we'll kind of get some guidance as to how the state's envisioning this as well. But I think even amongst the board, there should be kind of an idea of what our marching orders are for how you would like us to negotiate and structure the agreement.
More comments?
You do.
All right, I got some. Just on a side note, all the issues about in my world, this would not be the problem we have, but I'll just put it that way. And I would not have a problem with juveniles who commit serious crimes where they belong. Once again, do the crime, you do the time. But on that, your question, sure. Number one, then I'll address that. Shall the county move forward with the lease of the entire, now, first of all, these are negotiations. So let's not jump off the boat, get all excited, because if we don't like the deal, you know what you do? You walk away. So no one should be getting overly concerned here. That's why you negotiate. Should it move forward with the lease of the entire facility? Ask the state what they want, then we'll know. I'm on board. To me, everything's up for negotiation. That's why it's called negotiation. Number two, is intent to lease it after it's finished? Yes. Number three, will they stay, the use of the yak? I love that nickname, the yak. They will stay, yes. Will they stay at their current location? Yes, we would have to do that for a while. If so, should it begin the RFP process? And I would say no to that, because until we A, negotiate and see what we have, and B, go through our budget process, we don't know what we're doing. So why would we start planning to remodel a building that we might not be remodeling? So I hope everybody gets that. We have to figure out the negotiation and figure out our budget before we would decide what we're gonna do with that building, because they may or may not be there. We don't know that. As far as the lease, if it turns out that we have to do a hybrid model where 72 is the number, right? If it's, I'm just don't, this is just hypotheticals. If it's 40 them, 30 us, or whatever, that's all gonna be part of the lease thing. Do we know? Also, it's Captain Everson, is that? Hey, Captain Everson brought up a good point. If the state's gonna do anything to this facility, change it physically, then if we lease it, we want to put back the way they got it. Because why would we want to, let's say it's a 3 or 5, whatever the number is, once again, hypothetical. We don't want to pay to put it back the way we had it before. So if they say, we'll take, let's just the hypothetical, we'll take everything, and we're going to spend $7 million to make it the way we want it. And 5 years later, they're going to walk away, and we got to spend $8.23 million to put it back. Well, we lost money on that deal. So if they change it, like they broke it, they bought it. So if they change it, it reverts back to the way we had it built when we handed it over. That was a great idea of his on that point. So that's just me in general. To me, everything's open. No one needs to panic. You're not going to hear me to let criminals go on the street. That's not coming from me. So we're going to take care of public safety. But let's just go through the process, see what they say, see what we say, and see what kind of deal we do. It might end up something different than we've envisioned on both sides. Who knows? That's why you negotiate. So I'm all for negotiation. And like I said, the key is, to me, the big thing about the act is we should not sink a penny into that building till we know what we're doing. Both budget wise and this deal we may or may not pay. So that I get more detail, but that's it. That's just the general comments. That's all stuff now. So that's where I'm at.
Madam Chair, I would like to make some comments.
Love to hear 'em.
Well, based on I'm wondering who we is. Um, I'll reiterate what Commissioner Ross said last meeting. I had not been contacted about anything dealing with our correctional center until I saw it in the Grand Forks Herald. And that was quite a surprise. The last time I checked, all 5 commissioners were voted by residents of Grand Forks County. All 5 commissioners should equally get information. I'm concerned about, I've called so-and-so and I've called so-and-so, and it tends to be a 3 to 5. There are 5 commissioners. I would like to publicly state that as an elected official of the county of Grand Forks, I would assume that all 5 commissioners should be involved in conversations instead of reading it in the Grand Forks Herald, instead of listening to an address by the governor quite shortly afterwards with an exact budgeted amount that is being looked at for rent of the Grand Forks County Correctional Center. I'm taken back by that. I'm frustrated at that, and that could be personally, but sometimes when the comment is made I'm wondering who we is. Is we all 5 of us, or is we a select few that may have more friends in other elected positions than some? And I have a concern that the we is not inclusive of all 5 members of the commission.
Point of order. Did we vote to open negotiations?
Yes, we did.
All right. Question asked, question answered. Thank you.
I mean, the we is the citizens of Grand Forks County that are saddled with this project that they can't afford without a significant tax increase. I don't view looking at alternatives that ultimately have to come in front of this board anyways as any sort of renegade or rogue action. As a matter of fact, I could believe it'd be derelict in duties for us all not to be looking at possibilities for how on earth we can forecast financially with the capital improvements that are ongoing currently right now, the additional building projects, and those that are currently sitting on the back burner with a underfunded maintenance plan going into the future. So leaving anything off the table to me at this juncture is quite frankly ridiculous. And I will state, because I do believe I was called out in this, that I called yourself and Commissioner Ross to ask your opinion. Neither of you answered the phone. So I didn't leave messages, but it is a fact, a provable fact, that I did try to reach out before there was any other discussions about this. And I don't see how we can look at our budget and how we've been backfilling it with COVID money and cash on hand and look at what we've got going on. I think that we can be good stewards to our staff and to the taxpayers going forward without making substantial shake-up style changes in order for us to be able to forecast long term. It's so bleak that to rule out any sort of a change, no matter whose idea it is, don't care. It could be anyone in this room or anyone in the county. It could be a citizen. Any good idea should be on the table for us to look at and consider for potential financial solutions, because just gonna throw this out there. This is my crystal ball speaking. I don't think that the citizens of Grand Forks are interested in giving us a sales tax so that we can pay our bills. And so we need to come up with solutions that are maybe difficult decisions. And unfortunately, that results usually in change, and change can be very, very difficult. It is for me, it is for everybody. It's just a matter of fact. I mean, the calculator doesn't lie in this scenario. We have to do something. And so to start ruling stuff out before we even enter into negotiations, to me, is way premature. The bed space only matters if we can afford to staff it. It's a $40 million storage unit if we can't afford the staff. So, I mean, we need to be looking at any possible option that's on the table. And that would be where I am.
Okay, I too was with Commissioner Bierke on that tour. We spent 3 hours with Mr. Burkholder going through the facility. We talked financial. We talked a lot of financial things, how this thing could be done, and how Grand Forks County can make money with maybe using some of the state prisoners coming to our facility, but we would run it. And it would be a moneymaker. But as Commissioner Bierke said, we need to look at all the options here before we jump and do something that I think down the road we will regret. So
find money maker then, please, Commissioner.
Well, okay, first and foremost, Commissioner Rustad, you have been invited twice to go through that facility and you have not gone either time.
Oh yeah, I haven't, you're right.
And what an understanding you have when you go through it. Don't you agree, Commissioner Bierke?
Well, I'm a nerd. I mean,
yeah, but okay, for somebody that didn't know anything.
Oh, yeah, obviously, you're gonna learn something, obviously, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, just follow, that's why I'm not set in anything.
No.
Except for how can we do better?
Yeah.
So I'm not, that's why we negotiate, that's why we talk.
That's right, and that's why we have time, but I have a feeling that people are jumping here and they shouldn't be jumping. There's so many things to be considered that.
This is the projected budget loss from last calendar year. Now, you came in better than that. I'll give them a lot of credit for that. This is the $6.9 million scheduled loss. So I don't know where the money making is that you're referencing. I know that incarceration is not.
It can be done. It can be done. And I think first and foremost, like State's Attorney Haley said, you two need to go through that correctional facility and have it explained to you why it is what it is. And to make remarks like, oh, we didn't really need that jail in the first place is completely false.
We can't afford it.
Completely false. We can't afford not to have it.
It doesn't matter if you need it, if you can't afford it, Bob.
Well, we can afford it. We can afford it.
Okay, you're gonna have to show me
We'll get
those
it done.
figures.
We'll get it done.
Okay.
But keep an open mind.
You're talking sales tax then.
No, I'm not taking sales
Well,
tax.
how? Where are you seeing the money?
Well, it was explained to me when I went through and went on that tour of the jail.
It's
So
over $1 million to staff it annually.
Yeah.
Just the expansion.
it can be had. So it's for a discussion at a later time, but it can be had. So
Well, obviously, we're gonna go take a tour of the jail now, because we're getting called out that we didn't get taken for a tour of the jail, which I've never been invited, but I've been wanting to go. So what a great time. So let's make a schedule for all of us to go tour the jail.
well, Commissioner Bierke and I have already gone.
Okay.
I spent 3 hours.
I made some new friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did.
Couple more to happy with me.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hay,
Yep. Yes, Cindy.
Cindy, you're muted. There you go.
I've been at the correctional facility a few times and had multiple times an education on budgeting and how the operations of a jail takes place. So I do feel confident that some of Commissioner Ross' comments are correct. And if we don't know something, we need to be educated in that area.
So we're going down the negotiating train,
Still the same.
we're gonna see
thing.
what happens on the
Just gonna
tracks,
see what
right?
happens.
So that's fine. And they'll
Nobody's
just,
making any rash decisions,
Yeah.
nobody's making anything put in writing, we're not committing to paper, we are seeing what the state wants, we are gonna negotiate with them, then we're gonna come back and discuss. Unless I'm out of line.
No, I agree,
I
Dan.
mean,
and I really want to follow up on that question about, because I've heard, but I don't know for a fact. I really want to follow up on that question of if they're gonna, first thing they're gonna do is do a massive multi-million-dollar move around. Because I don't want us on the hook for that if they leave.
Yeah, that's the detail that could certainly be worked out in
Yeah.
negotiations, if I would decide to go that direction. As a board, I guess. It would be, I mean, it would be a pretty comprehensive lease, you know.
Right.
Lots.
But I want it all in writing. And well, I'm sure Ms. Mom says she'll take it up. I just want to make sure.
We'll put it on the bar napkin, Jerry. It'll be
Okay.
the one.
Madam Chair, I can say too that Ms. Lomstead and I will be meeting with the design judge next week to discuss what this could look like from a port administration aspect, and he might want to come and visit with the commission as well, just so you're aware. Just a couple more things, but I'm going to be very, very quick. Last fall, the commission directed me to work with Ms. Thiel and Ms. Nelson about the pay plan and payroll. We're resurrecting that now. We wanted to get past the elections and open enrollment, so that we're moving on that. A brief update.
You say payroll, so you're looking at a new system.
Yes, sir, that is correct. Yes. An update on the EUL expansion negotiations. As you know, we received a notice of intent from APTEC, Air Force Engineering Center. They're interested. They want to have those discussions. Mr. Sawyer and I met with Colonel Monroe on Friday. We're going to continue moving forward on that. So the next steps are an appraisal and to continue with some environmental analysis. Good news there is won't have to incur any legal expenses. So keep it. It's going to keep moving forward. So that's good news. And then finally, Project Ultra, which is the county's project as well. We're in the midst of task order 2 with a goal to have our live flight from Ground Sky to Cavalier Air Station and back by this spring. So when we get that live flight, you'll probably be invited if you're interested to come on hand and watch. It'll be exciting. We are already talking about task order 3 with the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, which means I'll have to bring back an amendment or amended IDIQ contract with OUSD. And I'm discussing some ways with Grand Sky Research on how the county can see a little bit more revenue from this deal. So more to come on that, but happy to answer any questions, but that's all I have.
Committee reports.
Oh, you know, I got some. Here, I got 3 committees I went to. All right, number 1, I met with the Fair Board. They approved some new bylaws and must comment the fair director. They're working hard trying to get it better. I mean, I've sent the message to them. They got to get better. They got to get better finances. They got to get going. In my world, they're not going to keep getting 100,000 a year. They've got to start stepping it up and do a better job and raise some more revenue. Went to the MPO meeting. Most of that money goes to the cities, eventually to East Grand Forks, but I can guarantee you, when I've told Mr. West the same thing, is I want to be with a dog on a bone. Any money I can get for some county roads. When I look at some of the money that gets spent there, think bump outs, bike paths, and buses. If we can get some money to fix up some roads, I'm going to be on it. So you have my assurances on that. For the emergency management, they gave her a meeting. We had a recap of 2024, went through a plan of 2025. You saw that tonight, one of the hazard mitigation. So we've done that. There's a big exercise at the base theoretically this summer. They're busy updating some plans and working on improving. They have these teams, CERT, LEOP, so we're working on getting those. Some of that kind of thing went by the way the wayside, but we're going to work on this year. We don't want to be the county that's not ready when the train derails or something happens. That's not going to be us. So we'll get on that and make sure we're ready to go if something were to happen. I have 2 items I know it's a lot, but you know, We get paid big bucks, so we got lots of stuff to do. We got a lot of stuff to address. So I have 2 items I want to put on the agenda for the next meeting. Item number 1, we go to the county administrator. I have 3 questions I want the board to discuss and hopefully vote on. Question number 1, the job description for the county administrator. Will it stay, I'll get it. Oversight of the department heads, or will it be supervised? So that's debate number 1. Are we gonna do that? Which one are we gonna do? Because this needs to come to a head, we need to make a decision. Number 2, is this position gonna be an employee or a contract position? And number 3, is Mr. Ford given the job, or we're gonna go do a job listing? So that's the 3 things I want to debate next time we have a meeting. A, job description. If we don't change the job description, then B and C are irrelevant. But if we do change it, then employee versus contract, and Mr. Ford just gets the job, or we go to a job listing. The second question I have is for Ms. Wamstead and Ms. Nelson, has to do with our home rule charter. I want to know if there's a way that we can write language to the home rule that would allow us to get away from all this mill control we have from previous votes, the state and this stuff, where this mill will go here and this mill. Right now, the way the system is set up, there are entities that we fund that are guaranteed raises every year. So while we could be cutting in 10 departments, these 2 automatically get a raise, and there's nothing we can do about it because of how it's written. So could we, through the home rule charter, write, and I'm assuming it's going to be ballot language, write ballot language that we could put up for a vote in June. I know it's an off year, but we could do the same Tuesday, make it as much as normal as possible, to where the county would have the authority to just collect mills and then spend it as the commission sees fit. And that would give us flexibility. So say we had, let's go to the jail, say the jail needed extra money this year, we could funnel money into that. And the next year their budget would go back down and we could funnel money over to the highway department this year. And then the next year could be the sheriff's. So we don't have this money all constricted. We have pots of money we really can't address the way we should. And like I said, we're giving out automatic raises that we have no control over. And so if we want local control, this should be local control. And so we need to, if the commission wants to do it, we need to have this done, I'm assuming by 3/31, so that we can have the ballot language by April, whatever the day is, so that we have X amount of days to get it out there, so that we can have a June vote. And why we need a June vote is because if we can do it in June and the citizens agree with this, then we can apply that to the 2026 budget, which is we're still working on. If we wait till November, then we've lost a year of budgeting ability to move things around. So that's the 2 things I want to discuss at the next meeting. And I'm done. Thank you.
Cindy, do you have anything for us today?
Yes, the library board met this week and went over issues and items dealing with the library and updating certain areas. So that was very informational and a learning opportunity for me. So I appreciated that. Also, we just had the Grand Forks Human Service Zone Board meeting prior to this meeting and discussed the zone board. There's some legislative action that's being looked at. Also discussion on some of with the call center. Sometimes there were staff or hearing from clients that they were in line, they were 77th in line, waiting for a call to be answered. And I stated that that's unacceptable because since the state took over the human service zone, the expectation would be that the calls would be answered a little bit quicker, not waiting in line in a queue for over half an hour. That's unacceptable. Also, the human service zone the number of people, individuals placed in foster care is down, and that's a good thing. They actually moved a staff person out of the foster care system into a different system. So that was good news. Also, the human service zone does have some openings, I believe 3, and I could be wrong because I may have misheard, but around 3 or 4. And those, there has been permission from the state to advertise those positions and hire for them. And again, they are funded through the state. So basically, that's what I have to report.
Thank you.
Okay. Just, we, on last Friday went on a tour with Commissioner Bierke. We, spent 3 hours in the correctional center. Went through and looked at, how money can be spent and, what money can be made, what alternatives we would have, and toured the yak as well. And, so, I mean, I learned a lot, to be honest with you. I mean, I've gone on tours as being the portfolio assignment for that correctional center, but I learned a lot just going with Commissioner Bierke and Mr. Burkholder. And yeah, there are ways to make money. And then this morning was the construction meeting out at the construction trailer, and things are moving along. Everything is on the timeline. Everything's going good. So.
I spent the week Bismarck last week, countless different meetings and get-togethers. Too much to even really report back. If anybody has questions, they can surely call me. I put my focus on potential solutions financially for the jail. That would be more like my number 2 focus. Number 1 was I really want to push to get a specific funding mechanism for the intersection of County 5 and Highway 2. That's a high priority for me, and seems like there's some momentum there. So I think, I don't know if it's going to get a special fund this session, but I think I feel pretty safe in saying there's probably going to be. This is crystal balls. Please don't take this as a quote, Harold. If you're listening, don't write this in your paper. But I feel like there's going to likely be a shovel in the ground in probably 28. So of some sort of a solution out there. I know Mr. Ford's been in some email chains that I've been privy to as well, and I feel like everyone's on the same page on that project and realizes the need for it. So kind of exciting, I think. Other than that, I have a late motion to give the Historical Society a 90-day notice to stop funding them. They're going to try to brought up today in the budget meeting, so I will take every opportunity that I can to give it a whirl. I'm not doing my job. And then let's see what else here. I did put the committee together to look at a potential marriage between the jail and the sheriff's department. The committee is as follows. I sent it out in an email, but for anyone listening, it's Commissioners Bierke, myself, Haley Womstead, Debbie Nelson, Dwight Love, Jody Hildy, and Andrew Schneider. Yeah, that's it. I'd say the good news is the intersection. I think everything's going in the right direction.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Rutledge, do you make a motion?
I did. I didn't get a second.
Well, while you were talking, I went out.
Yeah, there's a motion out there. That sucker's died a lot of times without a second. So
the motion is to give them a 90-day notice?
I think that's what the contract says.
Yeah, I'll be happy to second that.
Holy bucket. Look at you. All right, we'll go first and a second to give the Historical Society a 90-day notice. Any further discussion on the motion?
Are you gonna do roll call?
I sure can.
Okay.
We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bierke.
All right.
Ms. Peach?
No.
Mr. Rob?
No.
Yes.
I'm a no right now.
I'll be the eighth time, I'll be the charm.
There's always this summer, the budget.
We'll go with the budget. I think we're on to me, and all my meetings were rescheduled, so that is my report. Unfinished new business. No, we do not. But the next item under correspondence is the local government capital connection, possible conflict, your second meeting in February. If you want to reschedule that, so you could attend the 2-day event. You okay? Yeah. February 18th and 19th, so commission meeting is the 18th. You can reschedule it or no. Anybody want to reschedule the meeting? Go to the.
I'm not going.
Be able to attend, unfortunately. That is a no, probably.
I think board meeting that day too, which I'm gonna miss because it conflicts with this, so. Even at the same time, I think.
Yeah.
We can send somebody, can we?
I'm actually planning to go.
Okay, well, there you go.
Perfect. That's the board. Yeah, so that's great news. All right, I think we have completed our agenda here. Anybody want to motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Bottom
Yeah.
corner.